All right, let's begin the section for notebook. And first, as always, we'll begin with our setup. We'll import the libraries that we need, importing PyKX as KX. And then we're going to go ahead and read in that Bitcoin CSV file using PyKX, kx.q.read.csv. And we're going to create a new column on that table called date, where we're going to transform the timestamp column into a date column and store that as a new column. Okay, so now that we have everything set up and imported, we can now begin querying our tables using qSQL. So to query tables, we're going to use qSQL as our first method. And qSQL allows us to generate and submit qSQL queries using PyKX. The first statement that we're going to look at is the select statement. And the select statement allows us to query and retrieve data from a table, and we can do all sorts of different things in here, like where clauses, joins, different types of manipulation operations like maximum, minimum, and sum. We can do reordering, sorting, other things like that. So the first example, what we're going to do is we're going to take our Bitcoin table, and we're going to find all the dates where the price has reached a point greater than 73,000. And to do this, we say kx.q.qsql.select, so we're using the qSQL select statement. And then in the parentheses, we're going to pass in the table that we're going to work on, which is our Bitcoin table. And then we'll add a where statement. And this is just saying where the close column is greater than 73,000. And then we're going to group by date. So just within the select statement, we're specifying a where statement as well as a group by. And then when we run this, we can see that here are the dates where the closing price reached greater than 73,000. So there's just a couple dates in this data set where we actually got past 73,000. Now let's take one more example where we want to find what is the average closing price of the entire Bitcoin table. So we're going to do kx.q.qsql.select is our select statement, pass in our table again, and then we're going to create an output that has the columns called average close, where the value in that column will be that data manipulation average. So this is taking the average of the entire closing column. So if we run this, we see that we get our average close column created in our output, and the value of the average closing price for our Bitcoin data set is 23,242. Okay, go ahead, pause the video, try exercise 12, where you're going to try to display each date in a column called date, and then find the total daily volume for each date. When you're done, click Reveal Solution to check your work. Next, we'll learn about the exec statement. And the exec statement allows us to execute procedures against our PyKX table and apply a Q-style exec statement onto our tables. And we don't need to dive too much into the Q-style exec statements right now, but just understand that with the exec statement, we can do that. Now, what we're first going to do is just try to select the last item of our table. And using exec, all we have to do is say kx.q.qsql.exec, pass in our table, and this, right out of the gate, is going to grab the last item of the table for every single column. So we can see that result right here. Let's try one more. Let's go ahead and say kx.q.qsql.exec, pass in our table. We're going to get the close column from this table, and we are going to sort or group by date, and then we want to display all of the closing prices for each date when the ignore column is false or Boolean 0. Now if we look back up at the columns that we know we have our close columns, And we have also our ignore columns. So basically what we're doing with this statement is saying whenever this ignore column is false, go ahead and display the closing price grouped by date. So let's run this and we'll see our results. So each date displays a closing price for every minute where the ignore column is false. Okay, the next statement we'll look at is the update statement. And this is where we can modify existing records within a table. So to use update, we will do kx.q.qSQL.update, pass in the table that we're working with, our Bitcoin table, and then what we're going to do is we're going to update this table. And we're going to say, let's update the ignore column to true. So if we scan over to our ignore column, we want to update this to true whenever the close column, the closing price, is below 5,000. So whenever this is below 5,000, we're going to update that ignore column to be true. And once we run this, we can see that whenever our close column is below 5,000, the ignore column is indeed updated to 1 or to true. Okay, and the final statement type is delete. So delete sort of does what you'd expect. We can update a table by deleting certain elements within it. And let's create a column to demonstrate this. So we're going to create a column called test column, where it's just going to hold the string test. And let's take a look at what that looks like. And indeed, we have our new column added with test exclamation point in each row. And now we want to delete that column. So we can use our delete statement to do that. kx.q.qSQL.delete, pass our table in, pass the column name in, and in place equals true to make sure that that deletion is indeed persisted onto this table. And then if we run this, we'll take a look using table.head, and we can see that yes, the test column was indeed deleted. And what if we wanted to say delete all the rows where the closing price was under 5,000? Well, we can do that as well. kx.q.qSQL.delete, pass in our table and the where statement that close is below 5,000. And if we run that, we will indeed see that all the rows that are left have a closing price of over 5,000. Okay, so that covers all the qSQL statements in PyKX. Next up, we will look at standard SQL interface for PyKX. See you there.